Right? Okay, so we're continuing Pirkei Avot. We're still holding in Perek Rishon, and tonight we're going to be doing Mishnah Hey, Mishnah Vav. In some ways, Mishnah Hey is a continuation of Chesed. We spoke about how the world stands on three pillars. Torah, Avodah, Milut Chasadim. One of the pillars is kindness. The Torah, the service of Hashem, in acts of kindness that one does with another. The world stands on these pillars because without them the world has no purpose. In other words, each one of those pillars represents a very important aspect of creation, an important goal, an important activity, an important part of our life, and especially for a Jew. The mitzvot revolve around these pillars. So being that Chesed is such an important midah, characteristic, which also comprises of many, many mitzvot, actually relate to Chesed. Yossi ben Yochanan ish Yerushalayim omer yeh betcha patuach lirvacha. That your home should be wide open. Lirvacha means wide open, constantly open. Lirvacha is abundantly. In other words, don't discriminate, don't open it up only to your friends and relatives, open up your home to whoever has a need. He's talking about the mitzvah of achnasat orchim, which is an excellent example of a form of chesed that one can do almost on a regular basis. And he says the kind of lervacha that I'm talking about is v'yu aniyim b'nei betecha, that poor people should also be included amongst your guests. In other words, it's not that you get to choose who you want to do chesed with. Chesed amiti, true chesed does not discriminate. A good-hearted person, a good-natured person is good to everyone. He doesn't say, Persians yes, non-Persians no. Everyone is invited. Everyone is the same. Whoever needs a place is more than welcome. So he has a good attitude towards this mitzvah. It's not a burden. He does it willingly and easily. That shows that he's a real Bal Chesed. Rabbis tell us, if you look at the Aleph bit, Gimel comes before Dalet. Because Gimel represents Gomel, the one who does acts of goodness, of kindness, the one who pursues the good. And Dalet represents Dal, the poor man, the receiver. The Gimel is always going after the Dalet. Because a true Bal Chesed always looks for opportunities to do Chesed. He doesn't wait for Chesed to come to him. Okay, you need a place. You're welcome. No, he asks. He goes out of his way. It's important to him, like Avraham Avinu, who set the example of true Chesed, where he was sitting at the front door, at the entrance of his ohel, of his tent. No door, actually. Everything was wide open. Looking for guests. It made him feel good if there was a guest. It made him feel bad if there was no guest. So these are real examples of achnasat orchim. This is a true form of chesed. And the rabbis tell us that one of the midot, one of the characteristics, true characteristics of a child or a descendant of Zerah Shel Avraham, of the seed of Avraham, is Baishanim Rachmanim Gomle Chasadim. If they're bashful, they have busha, right? They are compassionate, Rachmanim, and they are kind-hearted, Gomle Chasadim. If one is lacking any one of these three, you may suspect that perhaps he's not from Zerah Shel Avraham Avinu. In other words, we are from Avraham Avinu, we have all three. And we have demonstrated all three in many, many ways. So Chesed, of course, is a very important midah that shows itself in many areas of life. Now, who's saying this? One of the generations receiving the Masorah, the tradition, a great teacher of Am Yisrael. But it's not just any ordinary person. There were other great people like him too. He happens to be Ish Yerushalayim. He happens to be living in Yerushalayim. Do you know what Yerushalayim was? It wasn't a small village. It wasn't some town in the north of Israel. It was the place of the Bet HaMikdash. It was therefore the place of Aliyah LaRegel. 3 times a year, Jews all over the country went up to Yerushalayim. There was no Motel 6 back then. and no Radisson or Hilton or Sheraton or any one of those hotels. Guess where people stayed? People's homes. They opened up their homes. They let them use their beds. They slept on the floor. That is when nobody felt it was tight in Yerushalayim. There was enough room for everybody. Imagine all of Israel coming to Yerushalayim. There was room for everyone, yes, because everybody made people feel welcome. And that is the meaning of lirvaha. Lirvaha is that you should feel comfortable. How comfortable? Let the people who come to your home feel as though this is their home. This is another interpretation of V'yu aniyim b'nei betecha. In other words, these poor people, these simple people, these guests should feel that they are b'nei betecha, that they are like family. And that is a very, very difficult thing to do. That is not easy for somebody to actually tell the other person, as we say in Spanish, mi casa es tu casa. You know, feel at home, my home is your home. Or we say in Arabic, beti betak. Right? It's not, people say things, but they don't really mean it. To actually mean it is a very high level of chesed, where you feel you want to share. You know, there are no borders, no discrimination. We're like one family. So that is the meaning of lirvaha, openly, without any limitations, make believe that this is your home. Of course, there are, people who take advantage of this is like my home, okay, and they help themselves. No. You have to be careful to respect the privacy of the other person, and not just to allow yourself anything. You're a guest. But unfortunately, some people do not have proper manners. Nonetheless, on the host, that's the mitzvah. The mitzvah of the host is to make people feel comfortable. Let me tell you a story of an example of a true Bal Chesed. And these individuals you have all over the world, in many communities. This particular story I know of was in London, because my father told it to me, and he happened to be in that individual's home. I'm not going to mention names, but he's a very famous philanthropist. I hope he's still alive, you know. This happened maybe a little over 30 years ago, about 35 years ago, 32 years ago, that my father happened to be there. And he stayed at this man's home, a home which was renowned all over the world as one of the greatest places for Avnasat Orchim. The wife and the daughters were always busy day and night in the kitchen, preparing meals for just anybody that came to be in London to collect for a cause, passing by on the way to the United States or on the way to Israel, whatever, you know, stopping there, needed a place for some time. He received a place to sleep, a place to eat, and was made to feel very welcome. So my father heard a story of about this great man, about this host, how much of a Bal Machnis Oreach he was. There was once a guy staying in his home for several weeks already, 2-3 weeks. He really extended his stay more than the average. But he felt a little uncomfortable. He didn't know how long he could stay here. You know, after all, you're supposed to only stay a little bit of time. So he went over to a gentleman in the home. He did not know that this man is the owner. So he went over to him. He thought maybe he's also a Meshulach, some rabbi. He says, listen, I've been here for already several weeks, and I feel a little bit uncomfortable. I really don't know how long if they mind, how long can I stay here? Is it okay? So the man tells him, listen, I've been here longer than you, and nobody has told me to leave. You see, he didn't make him in any way feel, he didn't want to whatsoever make him feel uncomfortable. So he basically said, stay as long as you want, in a nice way. That's the man, that's the kind of person he was, and he really meant it. Baruch Hashem, he was blessed. He had help at home. He was able to provide. But still, a lot of people have the means, and they don't do it. It's a big Yetzer Hara. It is a big challenge for somebody who doesn't have the inclination or doesn't understand the value of the mitzvah, or neither. I mean, why should he do it? You know, some people don't have a problem with having somebody over their home to eat, but to sleep is another story. And you can't blame them either, because to sleep, you know, you don't know who this person is. You don't just want to let anybody out in your home. It's a problem. So you have to be very careful. You do have to be somewhat careful nowadays. There's all kinds of characters out there. You know, even though it's a big mitzvah, you still have to kabdel v'chashdel. Rabbi tells us always be respectful, be suspicious, and don't take any chances. So don't leave any money outside. I mean, obviously you have to be careful, regardless of what you do. But in the end, you have to use proper judgment. And of course get references and consult, and as much as possible, if you're going to extend yourself very, very much. But just to have over somebody for a meal that needs a place to stay, doesn't have anywhere to go, it's a very big mitzvah. Next, Yossi ben Yochanan tells us an additional important idea. Ve'al tarbeh sicha im ha'isha. Be careful not to overdo it when it comes to conversation with a woman. Now, this is a little bit perplexing. Women may misunderstand this when they hear, well, what's wrong with speaking to a woman? He says, al tarbeh. He didn't say just to talk. He says, al tarbeh, don't overdo it. And he's going to explain himself why. What the consequences of ribui, of too much talk between men and women will bring. But before he tells us the consequences, he tells us, don't think it's only with other women. Be'ishto amru. They even meant this with one's own wife. Kal v'chomer be'eshet chavero. Obviously, the more so if this woman is not your wife. So what is the exact problem? Mikan amru chachamim. Rabbis learned from this, they inferred from this, that the main point behind these words are that kozman shadam marbeh sicha im ha'isha, when a person overdoes it, when he talks too much, spends too much time talking to women, these are the following potential consequences. Gorem ra'a le'atzmo, he will cause tremendous harm to himself, and I'm going to explain what kind of harm soon. Botel midivre Torah, the second possibility is even if nothing happens to him, ra'a, as a result of the conversation, the fact that he's over talking hours upon hours, bitul midivre Torah. At that time, if much of that talk was about nonsense, which many times it is, then it's botel midivre Torah. You could have been learning Torah, you could have been saying Tehillim, you could have been doing a mitzvah. How could you have used that precious time, which we have so limited of, right? It's limited. Our time is limited. Before you know it, we have to leave. So isn't it wiser to make good use of that time with mitzvot, so we can acquire more and more deeds that will not only be to our credit, but will be a greater accomplishment in this world? So it is wiser. It is simply a wise thing to do to manage our time properly. Otherwise, one of the consequences will be botel midivre Torah, which is such a loss, an irreplaceable loss. And the worst thing of all, or just as bad, I should say, is sofo yoresh gehenom. It could be, an additional consequence will be that he may get into trouble by starting up with the wrong woman, and he will end up in Gehenom because of his folly, because of his mistake, because of his act, because of doing something wrong with that woman. In other words, he may come to sin. So a lot of trouble, a lot of negative consequences can result from too much association, too much talk between men and women. So let's talk a little bit about what is gorem ra'a le'atzmo. What's the problem here? Why can he end up harming himself? What harm can happen from talking to a woman? Many times men don't realize it. They like to be open. Well, being open is very important, especially between husband and wife. It's very nice that you're open. You have to be open. But you want to be selective as to what you tell your wife. Even though she may say, I want you to tell me everything that went on at work. It's not a good idea. Because if you present to her a situation where you look dumb, that's the way she may look at you. The guy yelled at me at work, and I didn't yell back at him. Oh, you made a fool of yourself, right? That's the way you are. I know you're always like, just like your father, just like your brother, just like your whole family's like that. Yeah, that's how they start. You know, you should have given it to him. You should have told him what he is. If she's the kind of a woman who's that kind of a nature, she's going to look down at her husband because he was open with her and told her all his mistakes too. All his, things that, you don't say everything. Even though this is your wife. Yes, she's your best friend. Yeah, but she may not be, that calm. She may be upset, she may be angry, she may not feel the same way as you. So it's very nice that you want to be open, but be selective. You just don't say everything. What else happened to you, honey, that you look so upset today? Well, that guy I lent him money. Every time I see him, he doesn't pay. He says that he doesn't have any money. Oh yeah? I just saw his wife buy a new car. I just saw him order reservations to go to Hawaii. You lent him money? How could you do this? I didn't buy myself a dress for who knows how long, and you gave. He's asking for trouble. He's picking a fight with his wife because of this guy. Don't tell her. Don't you realize what's going to happen? You know what? You think this is just 21st century conversation? It's been around throughout the whole history, this kind of problems. Even 3,000 years ago, even amongst the Eskimos, I'm sure they have this kind of problems. This is typical. You don't just say things that will start a fight. And this may start a fight with your family, her family, the neighbor, your business partner, all because you opened your mouth. The man opens up his mouth, anywhere he can get in trouble, especially at home, when his wife will begin to look at him differently. Oh, ata batlan shekamocha, as we say in Hebrew. You, as you said, I don't want to say it. Is it okay to use that word? Anyway, there's all kinds of descriptions of people who simply don't do things right. And if their wife, feels that way about them, then basically it's going to be cats and dogs at home just because of that. So that's one form of ra'ah le'atzmo. Another form of ra'ah, they start talking, they're having a conversation. And he thinks, oh, Baruch Hashem, she's probably enjoying that I'm talking to her. But all of a sudden, he reminds her of something that happened 25 years ago. He says, yeah, I didn't forget what you told me then. I didn't forget what you did to me. All of a sudden, he's in trouble. He took her back 25 years, and she didn't forget. You think women don't forget. Even though you said, I'm sorry, that part they forgot. Right? But what happened before that, I'm sorry, they didn't forget. So here, somehow you brought it back by opening up, as they say in English, a can of worms. Don't talk about it. Don't bring it up because it could be a very sensitive topic. And even though it's gone, you thought it was gone, under mitachad hashatiach, we say in Hebrew, under the car, under the rug, here all of a sudden you're bringing it back up, only because of siha, conversation. Yes, it's important to keep open channels of communication. It's important to be open, but you have to be selective. Otherwise, the words that you say may cause a rift, may cause a fight, may cause turbulence in the house. And instead of having Shalom Bayit, you have World War III. Yeah. And eventually it could get worse because one thing leads to another. All because of siha. Ribui siha, too much talk. It can spoil it. Like they say, too many cooks spoil the broth? I thought it was the stew. Okay, it's the same thing. Yeah, okay. Too many, so too much talk will spoil it. A little bit of talk is okay, especially if it's about something constructive or what yeshiva should we send our child to? Which school? What should we do with this particular problem? Talking about issues at home, giving each other the right to express their opinion, showing that there is equality here. Okay, that's great, but keep it short. So Yossi ben Yochanan says, imagine, this is how bad it could get Be'ishto. Kal v'chomer be'eshet chaverot, talking about all kinds of things with another woman who's married. Ooh, that could lead to tremendous trouble. And that's a whole big topic in itself, because unfortunately it happens all the time that men have approached women in how are you and what's doing, I see you're not feeling well, you don't look right, and of course she starts spilling her story and the man feels bad for her and she's married. And things get worse from that point on. All kinds of things can happen as a result of that. So men have to know their limits. Am Yisrael, we are kadosh, we're holy. We have certain limitations that the Torah spells them out very, very clearly as to what is permissible and what is forbidden. And even one's own wife is forbidden to him while she's a nidah. Right? So we see how the Torah is so makpid on certain limitations, because every human being can easily get carried away and committed wrong as a result of too much sicha, too much conversation. Many people, unfortunately, who are Jewish but are not very observant, have the wrong idea about Judaism because of this kind of mishnayot. They point to the example of mechitza, a mechitza in a synagogue, as discrimination. I would like to sit with my wife. I would like to pray next to her. They don't understand that prayer is something special. They don't understand that the mechitza is there to protect the man, not to look down at the woman as being inferior. The man's thoughts wander all the time when he sees women. Prayer is a time to focus on our relationship, our kesher with Hashem. In order not to be distracted, in order to properly focus on communicating with Hashem, in saying our prayers properly, we need to protect our eyes. So here we have a mechitza for the man's sake. We don't trust the man. He needs this. It's not the woman. The man is the one that needs a mechitza for himself. So we're not looking down at the woman in any way by erecting a mechitza. We're trying to protect the man and enabling him to focus in prayer. That's all it is. On the contrary, Judaism looks very, very highly up to a woman. They elevate a woman. As the Rabbi tells in the Gemara, Beto shel Adam zu ishto. The house of a man is his wife. In other words, the wife is so important in the house. She's the one that makes the whole house. Rabbis tell us that a woman has binah yetirah. She has a very, very strong intuition. Even if she's short, bow down to her and consult with her. Certain areas of life, like business, they have a better intuition about what's right and what's wrong. You bring home an individual and you tell your wife, this is my future partner. And your wife says, no, I smell a rat. You smell a rat? I grew up with him from kindergarten. I don't care what you did and where you grew up. I don't like this guy's face. And guess what? She's right. She sees something that the man does not see. So the rabbis look up to the woman. In various areas of life, they are given tremendous amount of credit. Kiddushin is marriage by us. It's not just nisuin. Kiddushin means to sanctify, to elevate. The marriage elevates the two. If they bond properly, that is. They complement each other. They both need each other. They both have different roles. Right? But they're both important and they both gain so much with being with each other, as long as, of course, they are together b'kedusha, in holiness. What does this Mishnah have to do with chesed and achnasat orchim? Possibly the connection between this Mishnah and the previous Mishnah of chesed and achnasat orchim is because there's one area, as an example, where the Rabbi tells don't consult with your wife. What is that? Achnasat orchim. Don't ask your wife, can I bring somebody over for dinner? Don't always do that. I mean, sometimes yes. Why not? Because a woman, when she has guests, feels pressured. Oh no, now I have to do something special. I have to prepare this, I have to make that. I'm just not up to it. It puts extra pressure on her. And the husband says, what's the big deal? Just add 2 potatoes to the chamin, to the cholent. It's the same thing. They don't see it that way. They demand of themselves more. It puts extra pressure on them, even though after the guests are there, they love it. Most women love to host. Why not? After it's all said and done. But the first moment, there's a little bit of a hesitation. So as long as there's only one guest, surprise her, And if you know that there may be some hesitancy, if this is the type of woman that never hesitates and never refuses, on the contrary, she wants guests, that's different. But the average one may hesitate at first if you ask, unless you insist. So bring her. Oh, by the way, look who's here. We have a guest. Obviously, if you're going to invite 3-4 people, you better make sure that it's okay with her, because that already may be an imposition. Maybe okay with us, but she's the one that does all the hard work. So the rabbis were very choosy in what makes sense to speak about with your wife and what you're better off not talking about, for your own good, for your own benefit. So it's not a matter of looking down at anybody here, it's just experience. Men and women are very, very different. They look at the world different. They do things differently. And the Chachamim were aware of that, simple aware of that, and they told us the facts of life. This is the way things are. All right, we're going on to the next Mishnah. Yeshua ben Prachya, ben Itai Harbeli, Kiblu Mehem. They're the next generation who received the tradition, received the Masoret. They're continuing to teach. And they have something to add that is also very, very important, an important idea for a Jew to keep in mind. Yoshua ben Prachya Omer Aseh lecharav. He says 3 things. Aseh lecharav is the first one. In order to preserve the tradition, in order to strengthen our connection with God and the Torah and the mitzvot, in order to preserve our link to the past, it's very, very important that we have a rabbi. Aseh lecharav is choose for yourself, make yourself, get yourself somebody who you can talk to, somebody you can seek his advice, somebody that you can ask questions to clarify your doubts. Questions in halakha. We don't know everything, so we have to have somebody that we can call, somebody that we can ask, somebody we can turn to in all confidence, somebody we trust. Very, very important part of our tradition, regardless of where one lives, especially where if he lives, it's not so much of a makom Torah. He has to be able to know where to go, where to turn to. And otherwise, he'd be lost. So Aseh lecharav is an incredible, let's call it a tabat, a ring in this chain that we're holding on to in giving over the tradition to future generations, in teaching it to the next generation. There have to be teachers, there have to be rabbis, there need to be leaders who we can look up to, who we can turn to if it's a time of trouble. So they should guide us and tell us what to do. What is the right thing to do? There are many times that we are in doubt. We don't know everything. And even if somebody knows a lot, even if somebody is knowledgeable, even if somebody is a rabbi himself, he needs to have a rabbi too. That's the way it is, because nobody should ever trust himself. He may not be completely objective. So a question arises, he always has who to turn with. Aseh lecharav, therefore, is a very, very important part of a Jew's life. Questions come up all the time, whether it's in the kitchen, whether it's in family purity laws, somebody passed away, a woman just had a C-section on Shabbat. A child was born. So, they're getting ready to do the Brit Milah on Shabbat. The next week, 8 days later. Right? You're allowed to do a Brit Milah on Shabbat. Right? If the baby is born on Shabbat. But that's only if the baby was born a natural birth. If the baby is born through a C-section, that means that the doctor opened up and he took out the baby on Shabbat, there's no Brit Milah on Shabbat. The Brit Milah is postponed to Sunday. It can't be on Shabbat. Lo docha Shabbat. See? Not everybody is familiar with all the halachot. Right? He might make a mistake. Obviously, the mohel probably would not make the mistake if he asked all the questions. And he was a good mohel, knew what he was doing. That's just a quick example of how important it is to have a rabbi, a Rav, that we can count on him. There was an individual who was once asked by a rabbi, tell me, you live in this particular remote place. Who do you ask? Where do you learn Torah from? There are no rabbis and teachers where you live. He says, that's right. What I did was I bought myself a whole bunch of books. And I consult with the books. I read them all, and hopefully from reading all of them, I will learn something. He says, you know what you're like? You remind me of somebody who was sick and decided to buy the whole pharmacy and take all the drugs that are there. For sure, one of those will be good for him. He's crazy. He's going to get more sick. Every drug is for something else, and even if it's the right drug, you have to know how much to take, when to take. You need instructions. You just can't teach yourself. You're going to ruin it. You're going to make things worse. It's not possible for a person to be his own doctor. I mean, for small things, if he's knowledgeable, maybe. But it's not possible to learn from books. Who are you going to ask? Who are you going to speak to? Right? You need further clarification. You can't get that from a book. So it's a mistake to believe that you can just get along without a Rav. That's the first thing he tells us. K'nei lecha chaver. K'nei lecha chaver is also a very, very important idea. What's the importance of k'nei lecha chaver? Well, first let's look at the word k'nei. Here it doesn't say aseh. It says k'nei. What does k'nei mean? K'nei means acquire. Acquire means two things. A kinyan means make sure that when you acquire a friend, this friend remains with you for the rest of your life. It's a true friend. It's not just an acquaintance. It's not just a colleague. It's a true chaver. A kinyan. He's yours. He's yours for life. K'nei means acquire even if it costs you money. Why? Because if you really want a good friend, you have to invest in the friendship. It may take spending money on him to prove your friendship. It may require spending time and effort to prove your friendship. So if you want a friend, you have to be a friend. You want a real friendship, it requires tremendous amount of effort for quite a bit of time until a friendship is formed. There's different kinds of friendships. In Hebrew, Lashon HaKodesh, you will find the word chaver. Chaver is a simple form of connection. Lachvor, chibur. But if you learn the Torah, you will find that the Torah uses other languages, other terms. Hocheach tocheach et amitecha. Amitecha is one form of acquaintance. Then the Torah says, ve'ahavta lere'acha kamocha. It uses re'ah. And in Arabic too, you have rafiq, which also in classical Farsi you also have. You have sahab, you have sadiq. You have different levels. Habibi is more endearing, right? Whereas in Farsi you basically only have mainly one, the dust. Even though there are other words, there is a word something called like hankar. Yeah. I think if I recall correctly, right? Yeah, which is more like an acquaintance, right? Something like that. Yeah, I think there's various words like that. But basically,
that they have the same mutual esek.
The same mutual what?
Esek, business together.
Business, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the same. So it's a different level of friendship, of acquaintanceship that people have. The real friendship is re'acha. Ve'aftar le'acha kamocha. And Torah tells us, find someone like that you can really love and care for as though you're one. This is very rare. Very, very rare. So rare that I'll tell you a story. A famous story that's brought down in some old book. There was once a father that asked his son, so tell me, how many friends do you have? So the son tells his father, oh, Abba, I have many, many friends. He says, really? Have you ever tried them out? Have you ever tested them? He says, no. Try them out. Because I'll tell you something. all these years that I've looked for friends, I've only managed to get a half a friend. And I guarantee you, you have zero. Zero friends. I have a half, and after trying. Go ahead and test them. You've never tested them, right? No, test them. The story, I'm going to tell you the story in very short words. Basically, the father says, let me give you a test as an example. Take a sheep and slaughter it. And smear the blood on top of it. Put it in the bag, smear it with blood too. And go at 12 o'clock midnight and knock on the door of your friends, the ones you call friends, and tell them you just killed someone and you have to hide the body because you don't want to be caught by the police, you know. He went to one door. What are you doing bothering me at this hour? One friend tells him. He didn't even tell him the story yet. He says, get out of here. That was his friend. He didn't even tell him the story yet. The next one at least was willing to listen to him. Yes, what can I do to help you? Why so late? Can't it wait till tomorrow? Well, you know, I just killed someone. You better get away from here before I call the police on you. You know, his friend's going to call the police on him. Same thing with the third friend. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Scram. These were all his friends. He went one by one, came home. Daddy, you were right. I thought they were my friends. Daddy, did you say you have a half a friend? He says, yeah, I have a half a friend. He says, you can go to him tomorrow night at 12 o'clock. He came to him tomorrow night to his dad's friend, his half friend. You know, this is what happened. He says, come in, quickly, wash your hands. I'll take care of the rest. You know, he treated him very nicely, told him you can stay in this room till tomorrow, and then tomorrow we'll worry about it. So he comes home. Of course, he told him the story, you know, at the end that this wasn't the real thing. Abba, why did you call him a half a friend? This is the best friend. He says, this is a half a friend. He's good, he's very nice. But if you want to hear a story about a good friend, there were once upon a time there were two very, very good friends, where one was unfortunately got into trouble because of debts that he had, and he couldn't pay on time, and they were going to hang him. But he asked for mercy. He asked the king to give him time to go collect his debts, people that owe him money, so he gave him 30 days. So the king says, you know, what do you think, we're stupid? We're going to let you just go like that? Maybe you're going to run away. He says, I have a friend in town who's willing to take my place, that if I don't come back in 30 days, he'll go to the gallows. He says, you have a friend like that? Fine. And a friend of his, a good friend, a true friend, says, I'll take his place. I guarantee if he doesn't come back, I'll go to the gallows. And the story was that on the 30th day, he wasn't coming back. And he took the friend to the gallows. And he was ready, you know, to go to the gallows. He prepared the rope. And all of a sudden, from a distance, you hear a tremendous amount of noise. What was the noise? His friend was coming. He was making it at the last minute. He was coming back, you know. And he rushed to the gallows, and he put the rope on himself. And all of a sudden, his friend took off the rope from him and put it on him. Each one wanted to die, not to let the other one die. A big commotion was going on. Each one was fighting to die. The king came out on his balcony and said, what's going on over here? They told him what's going on. Each friend is trying to die and not let the other one die. He says, you guys are such close friends. Can you allow me into your friendship? I want to be your third friend. That's the kind of friendship we're talking about. He let the man go free. He says, such friendship, I want to be a part of this too. This is real. Obviously, this is rare. But it exists. It's rare, but it can exist. The point is, of course, that not everyone can make such sacrifices. This requires tremendous amount of sacrifice. Not everyone is capable of that kind of a sacrifice, but at least, at the very least, if one cares about another individual very, very, very much, that will be willing to help him in the time of need. When he's sick, he will be willing to walk a few miles on Shabbat to visit him in the hospital, lend him a little bit of money as much as he can afford, and not really think twice about it. That shows friendship. When a person doesn't think to help or doesn't have an interest whatsoever, doesn't call and wish him happy birthday, it doesn't, you know, doesn't really treat him as a friend, he's not a friend. You know, a lot of people invite people for the wedding. And they spent a lot of money on some of these weddings, cost a fortune. And I told a lot of people in the Persian community, on the invitation, just write there's no food. And see how many of your friends will come. They tell me only 5 maybe. If you write there's no food, maybe 5. Says, those are your true friends. The rest just want to eat. They're not your friends. They just want to have a good meal. If they're not going to come wish you and dance with you and be happy for you on your day of wedding, if there's no food, they're not your friends. I mean, you're borrowing $100,000 just to feed those so-called friends? They're not friends. In Yiddish, they're called fressers. They eat. That's all they are. That's what I call them. Anyway, obviously, we want to invite not only our close friends, we invite our family. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to invite a lot of people who are distant relatives because they're family, right? And we invite people because they invited us, and we invite people because we sit next to them in the prayer in the synagogue. Yeah, just be careful, only to make a wedding as much as you can afford. Because if you really have to end up making a big wedding, if you have to, then make it simple. That's all. Because tomorrow they're going to forget what they ate. Right? And you still have the big bills to pay. Yes?
Rabbi,
yeah.
You did not follow the first story.
Which story? Go ahead.
The story that the father said that I just have a friend.
What's that?
And then...
A half a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, he showed him who his half a friend was. The father had... To us, that's a true friend. The father's half friend, in reality, is a real good friend. But the father wanted to give the impression, you see, even him, is only a half, because a real one is the one from the story, where each one was willing to die for the other. That's the real, complete friend. But I agree with you, if this is what you're saying, that the half friend is really a good friend too, because look what he was prepared to do. Alevai, we should have these, right?
Yeah. I just read it somewhere that the father says that even if you have a very, very close friend, he will come till the end of the kever.
No, that's a different story. Yeah, that's different. Yeah, there's various stories. Yeah. Anyway, how do we know who a true friend is? In time of need. The saying goes in various languages. In time of need, you know who your true friend is indeed. In time of need. Because otherwise everybody will tell you, I'm your friend. It's not true friendship. So the type of friend he's talking about over here is knelech hachaver, a true friend. Why is this so important? Because if he's a real friend, you will listen to his musar, his rebuke, his criticism much more than you will listen to a rabbi. Because as Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz, I believe, says, words of musar from a real friend are more effective than 1,000 speeches of a rabbi, he says. Words of musar, of criticism, from a good friend that you trust, that you know he means you well-being, that he wants to help you, his words will be more effective than 1,000 speeches of the rabbi. Because this is your friend telling you. He actually means what he says. It's not just words. It's not just a speech. It's not just a lecture by somebody who doesn't know you. This one, he knows you. He's telling you the truth to your face. So that's when you want to have somebody like that. And that is what the rabbis also tell us, that when it comes to a havruta, a learning partner, it's all havruta or mituta. Either I have a haver, a havruta to learn with, or death. To be without somebody to learn is almost impossible. Without a real haver, it's very, very difficult. And this is about learning, because how could you learn all by yourself? You don't have anybody to ask. That's how much they value the true chaverut, the true friendship, the true relationship, whether it was in learning or in general. By the way, a chaver tov, if a person does succeed in getting a chaver tov, it could be a very, very strong kesher, such a strong connection that does not exist anywhere else, except perhaps the connection a father has for his child. But that's a natural connection. Father and mother for their child, he's a part of them. It's there from his flesh. What a father will do for his son, the world he'll give for his son. But that's a natural. I'm talking about something which is not natural. It could exist, it's out there, People, David and Yonatan, as it is related, is an example of it, that they felt a certain closeness, spiritual closeness, of course, that they were very, very strongly connected. That's what he's saying. It's a very important asset to have. And now we've come to a very, very important point. I think that this is, I don't want to say this is the most important point in all of Pirkei Avot, but I would very much want to say it's one of the most important ones. I think this is the following is an extremely important lesson in life, and if anybody can develop this, I think he will be very, very happy. He did it. And the lesson is, Haveh dan et kol ha'adam lechav zechut. Judge everybody meritoriously. Judge everybody favorably. Give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And this is a tremendous yesod, a tremendous foundation in Judaism. Because if they tell us, Haveh dan et kol ha'adam, every human being, the more so one's wife. Do you know that if people would do this, there wouldn't be problems kimat with shlom bayit? I don't believe there would be any problem with shlom bayit if people really followed this. And you'll see why in a moment. Haveh dan et kol adam lechav zechut. What that means is, to judge people favorably, to give them the benefit of the doubt, is that if you see somebody doing something you don't like, something you do not approve of, something that you don't care about, instead of looking at negatively, which is what most people do, is try to see the individual much more than the deed. And the individual is not necessarily connected to the deed. The individual may have done something that is totally not the way you see it. In other words, separate the individual from the deed. Perhaps that individual was not aware of what he did. Perhaps he forgot and did something wrong. Perhaps it's not what you see. Perhaps it was really something else. In other words, don't immediately relate the deed to the individual. It could be something completely different here going on. So instead of judging it negatively, judge it positively. In other words, try immediately to focus differently about this maaseh. Perhaps it's not what I see. Perhaps it's something completely different. Perhaps this man, even if it's true what he did, he wasn't aware of what he did. All of these are examples of lechav zechut instead of lechav chova. Now, what will this accomplish? When a person judges positively or gives the benefit of the doubt, in many relationships where people are close or have somewhat of a kesher, it will spare them so many misunderstandings. And misunderstanding happens because of what? Lack of communication. Why are there misunderstandings? Because people either did not communicate or did not communicate properly. So there's something called a I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. It's not that I understood you and I'm still upset or unhappy about the situation. I completely misunderstood you. It's a mistake, right? So how could this happen? Either no communication or poor communication. All right. Since unfortunately that is something that exists, lack of communication, not enough communication where people actually talk to each other about something that happened, what are we left with? To judge from a distance a situation and to build and to form an impression about that person. Sir, why don't you go over to them? You have a problem? Talk about it. Oh, he didn't say Shabbat Shalom to me. I'm very upset. Go over to him and say, why didn't you say Shabbat Shalom? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. I didn't notice you. I was busy. I was distraught. I had a problem. I just left this morning. I was half awake. And he already starts thinking, oh, this guy doesn't like me. This guy, all kinds of, he starts building a whole story about this person in his mind. Now, I'm not going to invite him either. He's already building. Oh. All because of the wrong impression. Had he spoken to him, he would have seen a totally different picture. So that's the big factor in causing misunderstandings is a lack of communication. So we have no choice but to judge favorably because we're going to judge. If there's no communication, you're going to end up judging, and you're going to end up judging wrong. Between friends, if people will judge favorably, yadunu lechav zechut, you know what that will do? It will eliminate sinat chinam. Baseless hatred comes about as a result of not judging favorably. Sinat chinam means a lack of interest for the other person because you think he's different than you, because you don't like him for some reason, because you feel a distance for whatever reason. That's sinat chinam, for no reason. Judging people favorably will eliminate this because basically you're going to say, well, I guess he's different. You know, after all, he was raised in a different home. I guess he's older than me. I guess he's younger than me. I guess he has a different background. I guess he's this. You know, you try to see things in a more positive light. There's no room for sinat chinam. A person who judges favorably, zemechazek taimun, it strengthens and deepens the trust between people because now they don't suspect each other. People can be suspicious. How come he didn't pay on time? Maybe he just didn't have it. Maybe he wants to, but he's ashamed and he didn't say anything. What? Let him at least come over and say so. No, but maybe he's embarrassed to. You see what I mean? People will always find a way to negatively see things and judge things the wrong way. There could always be a way to judge positively. You see somebody going into McDonald's, which by the way is a problem of marit ayin sometimes. There are places we're not supposed to go into because people learn, oh, it's kosher, or with a kippah he's going in. So he has a problem, the one who's judging negatively. We have to be careful not to lead to that impression. But let's say we had to go in. Why would somebody go into a McDonald's? Either to use the restroom, either to buy a drink that's kosher, or to make a phone call. I think these are basically one of the three reasons. Another one, because it's raining outside, maybe. Another one, because, I don't know, he had to ask for directions. There are other possibilities of why would one... But why should somebody think negatively right away? But that's what people, that's human nature. That's why he's telling us this. Because people are like that. They think, or they are drawn to the negative. Oh, I knew he was up to something. I knew he's not so kosher. I knew this is where he goes. You know, everything for money or everything for that. People, unfortunately, the Yetzer Hara works like that in drawing people to think negatively. So if you see something like that, think positively. What are the possibilities of why he would be going in there? There's so many. And you know what? If we do not think positively, we will end up realizing that we made a mistake. Because in the end, it turns out that we misjudged him. Most of the time, people do not judge right. If it's from a distance, if it's something that is not so clear, the chances are that we will make a mistake. So it is to our benefit, and the only right thing to do is to judge positively. Because more likely than not, that's the right way to judge. That's the correct way of looking at him. That he's not doing it intentionally. He's not doing what we think he's doing. So that's why it's so important to think positive and not negative about somebody. One of the benefits of Ladun Lechav Zechut, other than eliminating Sinat Chinam, is that it also strengthens our compassion for people. I've heard cases of people telling me that my wife is like this, and she doesn't do things right, and she doesn't know how to cook. Well, complaints. You know what I tell them? Well, guess why you married her? You're going to help her. You're the one to help her with this. If it's true that she has this weakness, guess why you married her? She needs somebody like you. All of a sudden they say, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Yeah, because you're thinking of yourself, of what you want to get out of the marriage. But it's give and take. The marriage, Hashem puts two people together because each one has something to give to the other, what the other one is lacking. So here you're complaining, why are you like this? That's why you married me, so you can help me with that. Because that's the way I am. What do you think? And the other way around too. The man needs her help in other areas. So when people think lechav zechut, it actually brings out the compassion. Oh, miskena, bemet miskena, poor, bichari. You say, yeah, something like that. Yeah, this guy, she needs my help. Or he needs my help. He's like that. What can I do? He doesn't realize it. He put his pants upside down. There are people that make all kinds of blunders and mistakes. They're absent-minded. Well, guess why you married her? She'll straighten you out. But as long as she looks at it positively, she says, "Oh well, miskin, my husband, he just doesn't get it right, or he just doesn't know how to do it." Well, guess what? That's why I married him. Well, that's beautiful. That's nice. She's using the word misken, or he's using the word miskena, poor fellow, instead of, this is what I got myself into. I'm stuck. Chas v'shalom. Look at it positively. It will bring out the compassion that you have for other people. The reason why this is connected to a knelech hachaver is because that's the very first condition of getting a friend. If you're not going to judge people favorably, you're not going to have any friends. That's the connection between the two. That is why they're close to each other too. How could you have friends if you don't judge them favorably? Rabbis tell us that if we judge people favorably, at that time that they're doing something wrong, b'shamayim, they will judge him favorably. We're helping the judgment upstairs. We're looking at him, misken, he didn't know. That's why he did this something wrong. B'shamayim, they will also look at him that way. And midah keneged midah, because we judge them favorably. If we ever get into trouble, they will judge us favorably too, because that's the way we've been judging everyone else. So we will come out gaining from this in many, many ways. Another interesting ma'amar Chazal is that the one has to make a blessing, when things happen that are tragic in nature, we have to make a blessing too. We make Baruch Dayan Haimet when somebody passes away. In the same way we make a blessing for good news, Baruch HaTov HaMetiv. So the question is, how could we make a blessing of something that is bad? Because there's nothing bad. Imagine if we are told to judge human beings favorably, the more so we have to judge him favorably and give him the benefit of the doubt. He must know what he's doing. It must be for the good. It must be positive. If we are told to behave like this and to see things like this with human beings, that he's probably meant something else, then the more so we have to judge Hashem like that he obviously is aware and knows what he's doing, and give him the benefit of the doubt. I like to use the example of a husband coming late from work. And what does he want when he comes home? He wants a good hot dinner. He's hungry. The table's empty. He comes in and he catches his wife on the phone. I knew it. Always talking to your mother and your sister and your neighbor and this. They're more important than me, yeah? He's already upset, and already giving her and reminding her of other things she did. As soon as she hangs up, he says, "Honey, I was busy talking to the doctor at Kaiser. Your child got hurt. And that's why I ran to the hospital. I didn't manage. I just came home right now a few minutes ago." Oh, had he asked, remember communication? Had he waited till she finished the phone call, had he asked her what had happened, he wouldn't have come to that argument, to bad feelings. These are bad feelings that eventually, if they accumulate, things get out of hand. Wait, patience, communicate, ask. And then you would have realized on your own, just a few minutes, patience, wait and ask. Don't judge, don't rush to judgment. And by the way, when was the last time this happened? Almost never, because usually dinner isn't ready. Usually things are okay. Then you should have thought something is wrong. No, but people associate phone calls with this and with that, and they don't. She doesn't think of me. She thinks highly of you. She loves you. She cares about you. She's always done everything for you, right? Has she ever done anything against you? No. Then why should it be this time? But the man, of course, is tired. He may have had a bad day. He's maybe in a bad mood, and that's what the Yetzer Hara leads him. Avera goreret avera. One thing leads to another, and it's your mother, huh? It's not her mother, right? So first, dadun lechav zechut. Be patient, communicate, and you will save yourself a lot of trouble. somebody that you know that is very religious, and you see him making something doing something terrible. It's possible that it's true, but you know what? It could be that by the next day you see him, he has already done teshuvah. So why think of him negatively? Maybe he succumbed to his yetzer hara. Maybe he did do something wrong. Maybe it's true what you saw. Even if it's true, maybe by the following morning he already did teshuvah. So why think of him negatively? We're only humans. Just to summarize this point, this is not advice from Chazal only. This is actually a mitzvah in the Torah. Ladun et chavero lechav zechut, the Torah tells us, betzedek tishpot amitecha. Betzedek tishpot amitecha means that you should judge with justice, betzedek, be fair. That's the simple literal words of betzedek tishpot amitecha, truthfully. But rabbis say what the Torah also meant is give him the benefit of the doubt. That's called tzedek. It was try latzdikoto, try to find the just side, the good side of him, not the negative side of him. In the Shamayim, you should know, they look at things like that all the time. They also look at the positive. They say, this man committed this terrible sin, but you know what? You know where he grew up? He grew up in Siberia. He doesn't know any better. Or he grew up in a kibbutz. He was deprived of a Jewish education. So Bashamayim, they consider everything, all the details, before they arrive at a conclusion, at a judgment. In the same we can learn from that. We have to consider everything. That is why the rabbis tell us, Al tadun et chavercha ad shetagia limkomo. Don't judge your friend until you're in his shoes. What would you do if you were in his situation? Would you do things differently? So remember, Hashem, that's how Hashem does things. When Hashem sees a person doing something wrong, he also considers everything. Nobody's judged alike. Two people doing the exact same thing are going to be judged according to the circumstances. That's the way Bashamayim they look at things, based on the circumstances. So we too, if we want to judge properly, we look at the circumstances. So just to finish up, Ladun et chavero lechav zechut, ladun et haisha, ladun et haba, the husband, the wife, lechav zechut, is I think an incredible, important midah that will spare us a lot of trouble. And if we control it, in other words, if we use it all the time properly, we will be eliminating a terrible avon called lashon hara. Because even though I said before that it tends to eliminate sinat chinam is not always so apparent. It's not always present. Baseless hatred is unique to certain situations. An avon that is more prevalent, unfortunately, that affects even the best of us, without even us realizing, is lashon hara. And it was gossiping and bad-mouthing people, speaking negatively about things that even though they are true, we shouldn't be talking about people. Lashon hara is a terrible sin. It's unfortunately too common. In the generation before Mashiach, it's a problem. And that's why Mashiach hasn't come yet. Sinat chinam, unfortunately, has been around. Baruch Hashem, of course, Am Yisrael is doing a lot of chesed. And I say that because I like to look at the positive that is happening and not the negative. But we still have to control the lashon hara. It's still a problem. People talk too much, talk negatively about things that they shouldn't be even talking about. So somebody did something. So what? What is it our business to talk about it on the dinner table, on the Shabbat table? It's none of our business. We have to be very careful. The Chafetz Chaim went out of his way to write a book about this because this is Chovat Hador. This is the obligation of the generation to strengthen himself in this particular area, to control it. This is how you remove Sinat Chinam. So the key to Lashon Hara removal, the key to the removal of Sinat Chinam is Ladun Lechav Zechut. And then of course you have Motzi Shemra, giving people a bad reputation, Choshed Biksherim, one who's suspicious of people who are righteous. They never did anything wrong. There's so many things that people unfortunately do not realize by their talk, or by their thinking of people in a negative way, they're committing a tremendous wrong. They're building themselves, even though they didn't say a word, they're already building themselves an image, a wrong image of an individual who's totally clean, who's totally innocent, because of a lack of communication, because of poor judgment. That is why it's important to train ourselves, look at always the positive in every situation. Why are things the way they are today in Israel? You could look at it negatively. Oh, it's terrible. there's a lot of beautiful things going on. Or even the people who are wrong and doing things not right, they don't realize it. And even if they do realize it, I still have something good about them. At least Hashem put them there to build the infrastructure in Eretz Israel, to prepare for the mass immigration that Bezat Hashem will soon be coming there. So even these people have some zechuyot. People who are completely empty of merits of mitzvot, they're doing something good. In an indirect way, but so what? We have to love everyone. As long as he's not an evil doer against the Jews, that's something else. But people who are just not knowledgeable, ignorant, secular, I'm sure that they have a lot of goodness to them. Even though we're told to be positive and to judge everybody favorably, as far as we are concerned, if we are the actors, the rabbis tell us, be careful in how you behave in the eyes of others. One should not say, I don't care what they think of me. No. The Torah says, V'yitem nikiyim mi'Hashem u'mi'Yisrael. Even though it's true that everybody should give you the benefit of the doubt, don't take that for granted that they will do that. Therefore, you be careful. Be clean. Make sure that your acts, your actions, your deeds are clean and appear good in the eyes of Hashem, in the eyes of all Jews. You don't know what they will judge. You don't know how they will look and perceive what you're doing. Hopefully they will judge you favorably, but you can't take a chance, and you have to do your best to make sure that your acts are clean, that your deeds are correct. Otherwise they may misjudge you and they may learn the wrong things from you. So even though it's true, we want everybody to judge us positively, but we don't want to take a chance and give them the wrong impression. Hopefully, Yehi Ratzon, B'ezat Hashem, if we judge everybody positively and give everybody the benefit of that, there will be something that will stick, and it will get other people to think that way, and everybody hopefully will look at each one positively, and that will increase the ahavat chinam instead of sinat chinam amongst Am Yisrael, which is of course what we need to bring the Mashiach, B'ezat Hashem. Amen.